Sure. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you the way that we see each other now in 2020. I believe we're going to do roll call. So I don't actually have a list of all the members. Does somebody, Mary or Dottie, do you have that?
What we can do is this. Yep, I'm going through the panelists. So just I can go in the name and just say here. Dottie Fuginetti.
Yeah.
Here.
Mary Ellen Brett.
Here.
Rob May.
Here.
Stephanie Danielson.
Here.
Amy Troop.
Here.
Jason Hunter.
Here.
Jay Patekos.
Here.
John Murray.
Here.
Mary Ellen DeFrayis.
Here.
Hang on one second. Ray Garino.
I'm here.
Perfect. I think I got everybody. Jason Hunter. Yeah, I got you. Okay. That is it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and read the Title IX statement. The Old Colony Seds Committee fully complies with it's not Title IX, it's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act 1964 and related statutes and regulations in all programs and activities. The Old Colony Seds Committee operates without regard to race, color, or national origin, including limited English proficiency, age, sex, discrimination, disability, ancestry, ethnicity, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, religion, creed, veteran status, or background. Any person who believes that they or any specific class of persons to be subject to discrimination prohibited by Title VI may by themselves or by a representative file a written complaint with the Old Colony Seds. Complaints are to be filed no later than 180 days from the date of the alleged discrimination. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities and those with limited English proficiency. Accessibility accommodations and language services will be provided free of charge upon request as available. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202 for more information.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I believe, I know that Dottie actually sent out the meeting minutes from the last meeting, so I presume folks have had a chance to look that over. Are there any questions, comments? Is there a motion to accept?
So moved, Rob May.
Second, Mary Ellen
It
DeFrayis.
is, okay, we have a motion by Rob and a second by Mary Ellen DeFrayis. Thank you. Great. So we can move on.
Do you want to just have a general, it's supposed to be by roll call because we're a public meeting, but even if we just to move us forward, if you would just like to just have everybody vote on that motion.
Oh, sure. We'll do that by roll call or just a yay or nay?
Just a yay or nay would be, I think, appropriate. It'd be fine.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Yay.
Any objections? The minutes are accepted. Okay, thank you, everybody. So moving on, we are looking at the year in review first, I believe.
Yes, but I lost my screen share button, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
Sometimes, Dottie, if you stop sharing and then reshare, that'll
Yeah.
do the trick.
Oh, there it is. Stop share. Okay.
And Dottie is going to present this year in review. She was great in putting together a great PowerPoint. And considering that we went through COVID, there it is. But since we went through COVID, you know, sometimes we just all really do need to stop and take a look at the successes that I'm not talking only about staff, but about all of you and the work that was done. So, so thank you, Dottie.
Okay. So I was only here for 6 months of the year, so some of this predates me a little bit. But in January, as you all met in person for the last time, and we had no idea then about what was to come. And I think that from what I've seen, Old Colony Planning Council and your SEDS committee really was able to quickly adapt and change technology so that you could keep doing the work that we do. You did surveys and outreach, and starting with member surveys, municipal surveys, one-on-one municipal meetings, and trying to find out what do the communities really need and what's going to help them get through COVID. And from that information, we used resources to develop the small business guide that we have on the website. We've done presentations and webinars. So out of the 8 meetings that we had, we did 5 pretty substantial webinars and presentations during that period. So really, you didn't miss a beat. What is SEDS, navigating grants.gov, outdoor dining while social distancing, the EDA NOFO webinar, and Dr. Mark Melnick for the Economic Development Outlook, which was the most recent. And these are just a reminder of what some of those looked like. And then grants, this was pretty exciting. You know, as we know, since COVID started, there's been a lot of grants that have come through to try to help municipalities and small businesses. And so we were pretty happy to see that out of 5 communities in our region, MassWorks grants were awarded to 4 of those 5. And then the EDA Cares was won the award for a feasibility study for the Entrepreneurship Center. There have not been a lot of EDA Cares Awards grants, so that was a pretty big success for our region. We've also really worked hard with outreach. Our colleague Joanne, when she started, she brought the idea of a newsletter, which Old Colony Planning Council hadn't had before. So we have the newsletter, we're on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on YouTube. We're starting to put more of those meetings up there. So, you know, it doesn't look like a tremendous amount of subscribers, but we went from 0 to, 500-ish in less than a year. So we're still trying to add to that and add to our database. And our staff changes. We had a couple of retirements this year, and then we have the new staff. And Mary has done a tremendous job for us this year, just celebrating her 1-year anniversary in December. We're very excited at the changes that she's been bringing forward, many challenges behind us. And we're very grateful for your partnership. I think you'll see some really wonderful new things in the next year. We're working on some exciting rebranding and changes that you'll see visually, and some real culture movements going forward for how we provide outreach and how we communicate with our partners. And this was our group photo that we took in October, I believe. So, Mary, did you want to comment on any of that? You're on mute.
So I've gotten a little bit grayer than I did from a year ago, a little bit shorter along the way. But no, to see this group, the SEDS committee, get tighter and more inclusive, I think, in terms of what ideas and how do we better ourselves, but it's also getting a better understanding that you'll hear in a little bit about what the SEDS is and how important it is to have the projects and developments and things going on in your community be part of that. So then when and if funding becomes available, we'll be all, we'll be ready to go with that. But it has been truly, really a wonderful experience, the highs and the lows. And I mean that in the way that I'm always learning. My hope is that this group that is currently on and those that aren't able to join us today, I think if I leave everyone with the fact that you can pick up the phone to not just me, but to any of our staff, that you will get that answer. And if we don't have that answer, we'll try to find that answer for you. And so that's what I really would like to leave the staff. It's an incredible staff, and the new additions, as well as those that have left us, really have, I think that's our role as a regional planning agency, is to assist and to be able to share information along the way. So when and if you have further suggestions about how we can pivot, how we should be responsive, whether you are a council member, a delegate like Amy is, or whether you're the planner in Brockton or Workforce Investment Board. Your input and your involvement is always great. And John and Jason, the two of you are like two little boys in a classroom. The two of you, I'm sure you're like texting each other back and forth, calling you out.
Mary, I asked him to keep his dog off the camera.
I'm moving. He's bugging me anyway.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. And I think, and let me also add, it has to be fun, right? If we don't make this into, I don't know, I think it was my dad that had given me this, if we can't laugh at ourselves, then, we all have to be able to kind of have a little bit of that, bring us down to earth, don't forget where we came from. And that piece I think is important. So I felt comfortable enough calling you guys out. I do it to the staff all the time. But again, if we don't have fun while we're at it, then I think then we might be in the wrong business, right? So anyway, Dottie, thank you for that opportunity to add, and certainly to both the chairs, Mary Ellen and to John. Your leadership as the chairs has really been helpful. I know you've been meeting with Dottie in advance and talking about that, right? Cultivating the agenda. That piece is important because otherwise, if you don't have that relationship, then why are you even a chair? So, love to have that involvement, and thank you for volunteering with us.
John and Mary Ellen, did you want to add anything?
Well, well, I'll just say a couple of things. Mary, I miss you as chair. but John is a great partner in crime, and it's wonderful to have you have moved over, from being the chair. But I learned a lot from working with you, and it's just wonderful to have you and to see the changes that are happening at the Old Colony Planning Council. It's really wonderful. I'm speaking for John, and he can weigh in afterwards. But we were very happy early on to speak with Dottie and some other folks about just sort of reframing the Old Colony Planning Council and the SEDS committee in particular. And mostly what I took away from that was how interested and enthusiastic, the team was about how can we be better understood, how can we be more relevant, and how can we be more responsive? I would say on the last one, the responsive, OCPC and SEDS has always been responsive. And I just feel like that's been a theme. But being relevant, can only be possible if people understand what your organization is about and how it can help them. It can be meaningful for them. So I really appreciate and respect and value the outreach that your team had to John and I, in the beginning, and then to the larger group about, putting together a fact sheet, the newsletter, being able to kind of categorize and group relevant topics so that the public officials, we know what they're interested in, the education folks, grant funding opportunities, planning. That is so helpful. And I already see that in this past year, the gist of what we are and what we do is being communicated better. So I just kudos to you and to everybody for you willing to sort of step back and take a look and reconfigure how we're seen in the community. So I think we're on the right track. And of course, COVID, we look for the silver linings, right? So in a way, I suppose it gave us a little bit of space to really focus in on that change so that as we go into 2021, we've made a lot of progress and are in a better place.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for hanging in there with us with that, and appreciate those kind words, Mary Ellen.
John?
Yeah, I just want to echo really what you said, Mary Ellen. I think we appreciate the staff's commitment to the SEDS. So, we've been spending a little bit of time sort of planning what the meetings are going to look like moving forward.
Yep.
And I think that's going to pay dividends for the members down the road to have, productive meetings through this forum. Like you say, the COVID makes it a little more challenging, but everybody's so busy with meetings. I think you really want to get something out of each meeting you attend. And by the effort that's being put in beforehand, I think the members will see that as we move forward. And I know that's on the agenda for the meetings coming up. So we look forward to that.
Thank
That's a
you,
good
John.
segue.
I know, I was gonna say, that might be the perfect segue for what's coming up.
So we've been talking about the meeting calendar for 2021, and we had done a survey, and the membership said that the third Tuesday of the month at noon was the best time to meet. And so we had some internal conversations and speaking with John and Mary Ellen about the way that we want to proceed for the next year, and having a calendar, probably trying to get 4 or 5 really good speakers, presenters about some really relevant topics. Dr. Melnick said that he'd come back in March, so we can get a follow-up with that. We were thinking about maybe having Juan Vega and his team come in a little bit before the MassWorks to talk about that. Possibly Emmy Hahn and the Downtown Initiative, and really, getting some relevant topics on that, but not combining them with the business meetings. So the off meetings on the other months would be where we really roll up our sleeves and look at the 5-year SEDS. One of the things that I didn't know about the SEDS was that when you're doing a federal grant, you have to tie that grant back to where it is in the SEDS. So if you have something that you want to do in your municipality and it's not in the SEDS, we need to know about it so we can get it in there, because that is a really big part of the grant writing. And I would even venture to say that using that in other grants, tying it back to a bigger economic development plan would be really helpful. So, and part of our grant work with the SEDS is that we have to update that based on the region's work towards those goals. So some of those off meetings will be where we actually dissect what were the objectives, what were the goals, what were the actions, and what is happening to make those goals fulfilled. So that will be the hard part, the hard work during the year as well. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay. The next item would be committee member updates. We think it's really also important to hear what is happening in the communities with COVID, with the changes. We had a meeting the other day, and we were talking about all the impacts of COVID and the new changes. And then it was like, all right, Dottie, give us an update on economic recovery. And it's like, well, that seems a little counterintuitive. We're talking about, rolling back, yet telling our communities to still go out and shop and eat and dine. So it's been a real challenge for us from an economic development perspective to balance out the caution of the health risks with the education of how it is safe to go out and take advantage of our local businesses. So if anybody has any comments or thoughts about what they're doing in their community to advance any of those economic development initiatives, that would be terrific.
I would just add that obviously the vaccine is great news, and so everybody's looking forward to that. It still remains to be seen when it'll be available to the population at large, because the necessary sort of hierarchy of who gets it first. I know for Massasoit, obviously we're going to be still doing remote learning, right? We anticipate through the entire spring semester. So, that's we have realized through this process that, we can pivot very quickly from online to in person, and we will when we need to, but we cannot pivot quickly from in person to online. That's much more difficult. And obviously the numbers are not looking good right now, so even though the vaccine is here and it will be, get out to the population later, the numbers are really challenging as far as positives and hospitalizations. And so I think the next month is going to be really tricky. I live in Boston, and so the mayor, effective tomorrow, will roll back So museums and gyms and theaters and bowling alleys and all that stuff. I believe Brockton has done the same thing. I don't, Rob, maybe that starts tomorrow. I don't know if you know when the date. Yeah. Newton, Somerville, you know, sort of other ones. So it's really, to Dottie's point, it's really, really so hard to forecast, you know, how do we get economic development moving again when we have some challenges right in front of us that we have to get through first. I will say that all of the chambers are doing a fantastic job on the buy local, shop local, love local. And I have sworn off Amazon myself for all my Christmas gifts, and we'll be doing, you know, all of the local stuff. So hopefully that kind of economic development stuff is helping people.
I
I don't know if
agree.
anyone has any other.
I agree,
thoughts?
Mary Ellen. I think that piece, I mentioned this to the staff, or I said, I'm buying all of the staff, local owned and particularly Black and Brown owned businesses that have certainly suffered, you know, in a more detrimental way, many cases. So that is, you know, those are kind of things I'm working on. But to your point is that this is then the time for us to continue to meet, to plan, and to be engaged, and to hear, and to listen, and to learn from each other. So, so thank you.
So in Easton, one of the things we've done, picking up from the Winter Places webinar that was sponsored by the Department of Housing and Community Development with Emmy Hahn and Chris Kluckman. We invited all our business owners that we had contact information for to join us on a Zoom meeting. And we asked them for ideas on how Easton might create outdoor areas where the businesses could continue to operate safely through the winter. Instead of focusing on particular areas and how to do that, what they came back with was, we really need to let people know how businesses are operating during the winter, that people shouldn't be afraid to go outdoors or outside, either shops and complying with the city and health guidelines to protect us from COVID. It was a very enthusiastic group. What's really great coming out of that is they're taking real ownership. So a small group from that initial meeting is taking a lead in developing a video campaign where they are, they've identified Easton Outdoors, or Easton Outside, right, Dottie? Easton Outside as their kind of their theme, a thing. And they've started videotaping different businesses, just saying, hey, Easton Outside, and there they are outside of their businesses, whether it's eating food or it's showing the business area. You know, Langwater Farms, which is one of our farm operations, operating for the next few months before they take a little break and start again for the spring season. And we're working this into a much broader campaign to promote businesses in Easton, you know, starting with the businesses that are hardest hit, a lot of these restaurants and food service, recreation, entertainment entities. So, and we're hoping to roll this into an LRPP grant application. We're working on that currently, again, for a broader, how to once we address the challenges we're facing immediately, how do we move forward long term?
Stephanie, just explain what LRPP is, please.
The Local Rapid Recovery Program. It's a technical assistance grant program.
Great.
And is that a state or a federal grant program?
It's a state program, and I think it's through the downtown initiatives.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
the grant is a grant. They'll connect, you put in your idea of what you want the grant for a technical assistance kind of a plan, and they'll match you with a consultant. So you don't get money, you get matched with a consultant that will help you create a plan for what you want to do. There's a little confusion around it because there's no money associated with it. So if you wanted to create a new plan for something in one of your downtowns, they'll match you with the consultant, you'll create the plan, but then you have to find the funding afterwards. So I hope that there'll be some funding that comes with that, you know, afterwards. I think they're trying to also see what kind of outside the box thinking they can get from communities around the Commonwealth. And they're very big on sharing best practices. So I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, from the small cities to the bigger downtowns, what comes out of that.
Yeah, and one of the things they're looking for in your application is engagement with the business community and the community at large, rather than this just being driven by the town and people sitting in offices. You know, they really want input. So this, again, just kicking off from the winter places and really listening to the businesses, we had a very different idea or understanding of what they feel is needed and necessary to help them continue to survive. And then again, the long-term, the plan we'd be looking for is how do we then help them to regrow as we come out of the pandemic.
And I think getting the businesses involved was really key, because at that first meeting, there was a handful of businesses, but then there was other, you know, other entities and, you know, people from different departments and so forth. And we had these great ideas of what you could do outside, and you could have like these pop-ups and you could do all this stuff. And then the businesses all listened, and then they said, none of that's going to work. We don't have time. We're hanging on by the skin of our teeth. We need you to come to us. We're not going to like change the way we're doing business outside. We need to drive business to us, which is the most simple and obvious thing. But we were trying to be so creative that we kind of lost sight of what do the businesses themselves really need and want. They need money and they need marketing. So I thought that was really some great results. And then they've banded together to start their own production company. I mean, it's just amazing. And what they're doing is they're bringing excitement and momentum together. So now businesses that weren't in that initial couple of meetings, they're like, well, hey, we want to be a part of that. So it's really growing organically.
Yeah, so we'll be rolling that out shortly. So look for Easton Outside.
Love it. That's great.
What are you guys doing, Amy?
Well, they're trying to get us involved in complete streets and different programs to the DOT. But the problem is if you read the contracts that you have to sign, you have an implementation plan that allows the DOT to change any of your laws, not just your zoning laws. And you're giving up all of your future rights on our laws and zoning laws and all kinds of bylaws for for up to 400,000 on complete streets. And they're sending around engineers to advertise. So we're using our Chapter 90 money, which we need for streets, and we're binding ourselves to new laws. We don't need more government. We need less government. So every time we apply for all these grants and get ourselves intertwined, we're giving up our freedom. And if you read the implementation plans that is put in, that is literally readable in these grants, then you'd be shocked and you wouldn't want to go for it. Nobody should be spending Chapter 90 money to gamble on whether they're going to get a grant for complete streets. We should be using the Chapter 90 money to look at our streets and start looking at these numbers of how many people are getting better from COVID and opening up again. Because if you can stand in line at Lowe's, why can't you go out to eat at a restaurant? Why can't you go inside of a restaurant? There's too many backs and forths, and we're just agreeing to it all. And we really have to, as a nation, open up our eyes and say, if there's a 99% rate of people getting better from this, why are we looking at a vaccine? And why are we looking at all of these grants that are changing our zoning bylaws without our consent by just taking a little bit of money that we think is helping us? I definitely heard somebody say, let's shun Amazon. Yeah, let's get people going to a local store and not go through a non-manned register. We have to promote employment so that these people can pay their bills. We have to take away and step back and say, we still have so many problems that we're going to have blow up in our face as soon as the Fed says, yes, let's evict. Yes, unfortunately, because this is happening, and let's foreclose. I have people in this town that have just flabbergasted me by saying, even though they make money and get pensions and have unemployment and all the other things, they're not paying their mortgage because the Fed said, oh, you don't have to, and there's no foreclosures. People aren't paying their rent and having parties in front of landlords. These are the things that are happening behind the scenes that we're going to lose the freedom of the United States because we're not paying attention to what this money is. Our job's not to spend money and bind people to laws. Our job is to keep the freedom going. So it sounds great, but we can do all of these things outside. Read Complete Streets, read these things on the DOT website and see, because I just went and I looked up local rapid recovery program, and it's all within the same guidelines of giving money that then tie you into laws because of COVID.
So what is your community doing, Amy, to get people to spend money locally? Do you have any plans or any
We
programs?
just have Complete Streets in front of the planning board, and there's a lot of money being spent that is
Okay.
Federal CARES Act money, which again is going to go right back to the fact I don't agree this is the solution to get us out of this. It's binding us to federal laws that we need to really start opening our eyes to.
So one of
Alright,
the things I think that, because Amy, you're from Halifax.
Yep.
And so while I know when we were talking to Charlie Seelig in some of our discussions, like there's a small group of businesses, and I think he said that there's an organization, at least just to kind of hear, what you said in terms of, looking what others are doing, but maybe even if we start gathering some of the needs of the small businesses in Halifax and where we can assist, whether it's even just a phone call and a discussion. Let's not even necessarily talk about funding, but even it's, we have not only Dottie, but even some of this group, the experts from Mass Development, as well as from the Mass Hire and elsewhere that might be of assistance for maybe they need some training in how to put on a webinar, because that's, you've had to go from an in-person to an online. Those are, I think, some of the things I think we're trying to, so it's not always the big, right? It's not always about changing the look of a community. Sometimes it's those small, important things about, whether whoever makes decisions, whether it's the governor, the whomever makes those decisions, but the reality is that some of the businesses are experiencing, and how do we help them be able to pivot?
Yeah, we need to allow them to open and stay open.
And I
If
think-
you can stand in line to get into Lowe's, then you should be able to stand in line to get into small businesses that won't open. And the federal grants aren't going to help any of that, or the state grants, especially if you read the implementation laws, which none of us, have you guys ever read the implementation laws? Have you said, oh, all right, if I apply for this grant and I get it, what you're actually selling your town into? Have you read them? Has anybody?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
most people do. I'm looking at that. I don't think that any community, particularly, I don't think that there's a contract that the legal office of or the town solicitor or planners to get down that path. I think when you take on something, you have to know what the residuals or what the criteria is going to be. So you have a decision whether to apply or not to apply.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys have all read it, because I was the only one on my planning board that did read them. And, that was very concerning to me, because if we're sitting here being in charge of all these people that live in our towns that pay our taxes, we need to consider them before we consider anybody changing laws while they're at home, not being able to have a normal life, because they're trying to teach their kids and everything. Everybody doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes.
So Rob, let's hear what you're doing in Brockton.
I'm sorry, my screen is frozen. I can't.
I know that trick.
Besides
yeah.
all those awards you're winning, what
Oh,
else are you
please.
doing?
We are going all out on the Urban Agenda Grant. where Urban Agenda, we're applying to do sort of a pop-up business introduction event where we want to bring people downtown to live music and entertainment, and have a whole bunch of tents and displays to let people introduce themselves to the various businesses and social service agencies that are around. We're applying for open streets or shared streets to make improvements, temporary improvements to the BAT area so that we can have the pop-up events and other Prava and other activities. We're working on the cultural call that just went out, working with Brockton Arts at the Enzo Gallery, Black-owned Brockton, the library, the farmers market, and Prava, to put together a series of events that are tied into each other. There's basically 4 venues downtown, and there's maybe 8 or 9 content providers, including the Brockton Symphony and the Massasoit Drama Department, that we could do some mixing and matching and having bring different events and activities downtown. And there's got to be something else. I don't know. We just filed the PNF for the two-way transportation study. For the two-way transportation project needs form.
Yay.
Oh my God. Pulling teeth. And let's see what else is happening out there. But we really are working. Later this spring, or in the spring, we want to hold a series of innovator roundtables. We want to know, where are our disruptors? Where are our hackers? Where are the people who are trying to create the digital future, or the disrupt and destroy and recreate? So we need to know more about them and what we can do to make our environment better for them.
That's terrific. What about mass development? Big news for you guys today?
Yeah, we have a new CEO. It was kind of weird how everything happened when our other CEO was leaving. So it left a lot of uncertainty for a lot of us. So we were worried and hoping that we weren't going to get a freak that was going to be the president. But luckily, we turned out to be pretty lucky in having Dan Rivera, the Lawrence mayor, as our next CEO. I think he's starting January 4th. So we're excited. He's got a great history with mass development. He's somebody who's worked with us for many years. So I think most of the people I've talked to are very excited about it.
That's great. We'll have to get him to join us for one of these.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely work on that once he gets going.
Great. Anything new and interesting on the horizon for your group, or?
I think Commonwealth Places is supposed to be coming out soon. That's the latest thing. I don't think it's come out yet, but we had heard early December. So that's something. That's the matching grant program for betterment of outside spaces. That should be coming around soon. But as far as new grant opportunities, I haven't heard.
You've got a challenge grant that's coming out in February, don't you?
I don't know if you know more about that, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, through TDI, we've got another round of challenge grant funding coming out. The only thing I'm not sure on, Rob, is if it's only eligible to TDI communities, which may be why you know about it and it's not widely spread. I'm losing track of which ones are TDI focused.
Yeah.
Terrific.
I'd apply for an agriculture grant if I can get it. I don't.
Well, I sent the list of some of the grants that were available in the invitation, and when I follow up from today's, I'll add Mass Historic is also come out with a grant application as of yesterday. I sent an email to Stephanie, by the end of the day saying, hey, what about, some of these projects? Can Easton use it? And she said they were already working on the application. So as usual, Stephanie was 3 steps ahead of us.
No, not me, Wayne Beitler, who works with me. Yep.
There's a Mass Historic grant?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
forward that. That just came out. I forget. I think I got the notification. I'm not sure I shared it with a couple others. And I think that's the thing, that internally what we're doing is we're communicating across divisions, departments. We see something, we share it out. We're centralizing our communication, so you're not getting 15 emails from 18 people. So by us kind of focusing on the newsletter, as long as we know that the timing of everything of when the grants are coming through. But we pass on that information for those as we get to know your communities more. And obviously I'm looking at Dottie and Stephanie, and the fact that between the Board of Selectmen and then also with Stephanie and the planning office, is that you're in that gel where you're on the same page. Not all communities are that way. So we share it out with everyone, and obviously the Board of Selectmen and others make that decision from that point on. So I think that part's really important. I know, Ray, you have that, oh, I see what you if you want to unmute yourself and talk about that before we go too far down that, with 15 minutes left. I think that there's a climate change work that you're doing, Ray, that while it's transportation related, we are working with our communities on that piece. So maybe you want to just do a quick little update about that.
Sure. I just wrote in the chat that maybe Ms. Trout can look see what some of the other towns have done with complete streets. If she's concerned about what complete streets are about. There's Mass DOT has a website about that, so you can see how the other towns have used that money and what they've done with those grants to get more information on it. Yes, we're working on climate change vulnerability study, and that is to see what the impact is of climate change on the transportation system, how it's accelerated the deterioration on our roads and bridges, because that impacts the movement of people and movement of people and goods. So it's and also I wanted to give an update when I get more time on the Global Warming Solutions Act, what the state of Massachusetts is doing in response to climate change. There's an agreement among northeastern states. It's a cap and trade on fossil fuels for transportation. They have not signed that memorandum of understanding yet. I'm still trying to find out what's going on. It's supposed to actually be happening in 2020. So that's what's happening with climate change. And we're also doing, we also have another project in transportation. We're doing 15 road safety audits, which have to do with traffic safety. We're doing a bunch of them on Warren Ave intersections and Brockton, but we have all the towns involved in that. That's with Bill McNulty as well as myself.
Thanks, Ray.
Yep. So, and the other thing, the other reason why I'm here, real quick, I know you don't have a lot of time, but I think it's MAPC. They have an interactive map. They have something called Mass Build, and what we do is we keep track of all the different developments, which is a good. It's good to be here, so we find out what developments are happening. I noticed they knocked down the building on School Street. I think it's 26 School Street.
Yep.
So I don't know if anything is going on with that, if they just knocked down the building, or if they're gonna. But that goes into a map, so you can actually go online and see what you can take your town and see what new developments have happened and what the impact is on traffic or anything else in the town. So those.
It's called Mass Build?
Mass Build. I think that's what it's called.
I'll send you the link, Rob.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mary, could you send that to everybody?
Will do. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it would be good to take a look at it because when I looked at it, there's a number of things in Easton that I know, like Avalon's not on there. There's a lot
Right.
of things not on there. So the more we can update that, the more accurate it is.
So would that
Right,
be,
right.
and would this group be interested if we bring someone in to talk about Mass Build and how it's utilized? I think that would be particularly the
Yeah.
planning side of things, economic development, so.
Yeah.
but
You know,
I'll share-
Mary, I'd like to hear more, and maybe OCPC can consider this, is when we're talking about climate change and resiliency and transportation, you know, what work is being done and how even within our own communities. I mean, Easton adopted a complete streets policy a number of years ago. Well, not a number, it seems like a number of years ago now. And, you know, just alternative transportation options, especially in communities like Easton that aren't served by transit, and how we get people out of their cars and walking and bicycling. You know, we're doing it through zoning initiatives and policies and encouraging more neighborhood-like development.
Mhm.
But again, it's always nice to hear more and have success stories to share with people when you're trying to convince them these are good ideas.
I think those are exactly the point of us having the conversation, right? We can talk a lot about this, you know, the different topics within the SEDS, but up and coming and how do we become more resilient and how do we become more, you know, attractive in terms of whether it's commercial, real estate, residential, or even just the climate and being environmental sustainability. So all of those comments, if anybody has any ideas, please get them to Dottie. While this meeting, by the time we have our next meeting, we are in the process of filling the vacancy of Bruce, and we'll be exciting to share that information over the next week. Maybe before the end of the week, I'll be able to announce it. I just want to be able to get to staff first and to the council members. So we're moving forward because the economic development aspect of our region is really important, that we maintain and sustain and continue to thrive. And we're looking to get us all back to full speed in terms of economic development to be working with Dottie. So that piece is important. So thank you, Stephanie, but share those ideas with Dottie. I'll shut up.
And I just want to get to Mary Ellen and John quickly before we run out of time. So I feel bad that you always end up getting to be the last two to speak. So if you want to update us.
I'll just go quickly. You know, we're really concentrating on trying to match job seekers with businesses with this whole, you know, new set of problems that people are facing. It's become a bit of a challenge, but one of the breakthroughs that I did want to mention is the state has purchased a new platform for job fairs. So we are now able to hold virtual job fairs. There was one statewide in November for veterans, and we're going to be holding our first one on January 26th from 10 to 11. It's really simple for both businesses and job seekers to sign up. The business gets their own booth. They can screen the people that they're interested in talking to. There's a live video feature, so you can have a quick interview with somebody if you're interested in that. Job seekers can submit several types of resumes to different companies and visit however many companies they're interested in. So I do think it's going to be a big breakthrough for us because we've been challenged with recruitment in people facing, you know, kids home from school, and just the fear of going back out to work for a lot of people is still there. So this gives us an opportunity to try to do some job matching that way.
If you
And
send me
just,
that, John, we'll put that in our newsletter and social media as well.
Sure.
And just
Sorry, Mary.
anecdotally, John, are you finding, you know, what's the buzz from businesses, you know, that you typically work with? Are they just sort of in a holding pattern right now, waiting for, you know, things to become a little more stable before they do a lot more hiring or training?
I think it's a little bit of both, Mary Ellen. So transportation companies, they're hiring, as is healthcare. Those seem to be the two industries that are still really looking for people. And then there is a group that's just sort of trying to maintain before they go into any, big hiring. So it's sort of all over the board, but certainly we are seeing a lot of healthcare for obvious reasons, I guess, but it's still looking for people.
Yeah, well, that's no surprise, I guess, right? Between the current reality, but also just because of the region that we're in, right? I mean, healthcare is sort of more than its fair share of the diverse economy. And so it'll always be super important. And I'm not sure we'll ever have enough supply,
Right.
to meet the demand, especially, with the baby boomers, that generation exiting out of the workforce. But on that note, Massasoit put in a grant application. We don't know yet. I haven't heard anything from ComCorp, but basically kind of similar to what we did with Urban Agenda, take a cohort of students, 15 people, and instead of IT, which is what we did with Urban Agenda in the city of Brockton, it would be medical office assistant, ESOL specifically. So folks would be bilingual and they would be trained to a degree for medical office assistant and also for straight up medical assistant. So kind of a hybrid. We reached out to partners to see who would be interested in joining us in this endeavor. And we did have to get a certain amount of partners from particular categories. And so the South Shore Health System joined. Also, I believe one of the Stewart hospitals, Beth Israel Deaconess, Milton and Plymouth, MassHire, Brockton, thank you, John, and 3 workforce development regions. So not only Brockton, but South Shore and also Southwest. So Norwood, Canton, out that side of the house. It would be, instead of just 15, it would be 3 cohorts of 15. So it'd be 45 people over about a year and a half. So we're hopeful that will be a small sort of drop in the bucket of what's needed on the healthcare front. We're wrapping up the current Urban Agenda, which has worked out really, really well. We had 15 students go into an IT program. If they pass their exam, they'll get A+ certification from CompTIA, which is international credential as well as an industry recognized credential. MassHire has been a great partner to help students do the next phase once they complete their studies and sign up as customers, and they're going to do a resume workshop, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really grateful for the partnerships that made, Urban Agenda with Brockton possible. That was really great. And that's really all I have for an update. Is there any other business in the interest of time? The important question. Let's see. I'm going with Ray because
you should be able to vote right on
the poll.
Yep.
It doesn't do anything when I click them.
My
Yeah,
God.
I probably did it wrong.
Well, it disappeared.
I'm good with Ray.
Most panelists cannot vote. Only one person can vote.
And it's a 3-way tie.
Perfect. Happy holidays to everyone.
Happy
Take
holidays.
care, everyone.
Yes,
Happy holidays.
Stay safe and healthy, and I look forward to seeing you in January.
Happy
Thanks.
holidays.
All right.
You too. Bye.
Bye.